Earlier this month, the House Financial Services Committee announcing legislation to establish a regulatory framework for payment using stablecoins. In his latest op-ed, former controller of the currency, Brian Brooks, outlining his support for the legislation, saying stablecoins are at the heart of a dollar-based revolution. Joining us right now, Brian Brooks is Valor Capital Group partner. He's also the former Binance U.S. CEO. Brian, it's great to have you. It's a fascinating op-ed, and this whole issue is a fascinating one. But in terms of just where we are right now, in terms of the regulatory landscape, but where you think the mindset is in Washington around regulating and or effectively blessing these types of coins, where do you think we really are?
Yeah, Andrew, I think it's a great question, and this is really, really important with PayPal's big announcement this week. But I think the administration's made pretty clear they're opposed to stablecoins penetrating the economy, and it's not totally clear how. When I say they're opposed, I say that because, former chairwoman Maxine Waters, who led her Democratic colleagues essentially in a walkout of the stablecoin bill after having spent a year helping the chairman of the committee craft that bill, purportedly because the White House had threatened to veto it. So it's not clear why it's so important to the administration to keep stablecoins out of the discussion, but I think that's their policy.
And so what do you think has to change, or what do you hope to change if, in fact, there will be a change? It sounds like this is what I just don't, I don't know. I see the debate happening, but I don't know if there's going to be any real movement given the mindset that you just described.
Well, and Andrew, I come back to your last segment where there was a debate about demand side versus supply side pressures out there. And the point of the op-ed in the Wall Street Journal yesterday was to talk about the fact that there's really strong demand for stable coins coming from certain sectors in the world versus the supply side. So think about it. Money's created by government credit operations, created by central banks around the world, including our Federal Reserve. But the demand for money comes from economic activity from people. It's people who are earning money through work, earning money through lending and doing other kinds of things. And where do they want to keep their money? In the op-ed, we talk about how citizens in countries that have high inflation are really strongly demanding dollar-denominated products that keep their money safer after they've earned the money through work. And in many countries where you can't get a dollar bank account, stablecoins are your best solution. So in the op-ed, we talk about the idea that if only the U.S. government would create a framework that allows dollars to back stablecoins in a regulated way, that demand will flourish. That would be good for dollar adoption globally. But as long as we're allowing governments to suppress stablecoins, you have this sort of push-pull phenomenon, which creates the problem.
Does this acknowledge then the shortfalls of cryptocurrency? I mean, this sort of was the case, the argument for Bitcoin. And now you're saying there's a real need for a stable coin pegged to the U.S. dollar as opposed to Bitcoin. Bitcoin was supposed to be the answer for exactly the case you laid out.
Well, and I would argue that Bitcoin being the #1 performing asset in 2023 might actually vindicate that. I mean, for some reason, people keep declaring Bitcoin dead when, in fact, it's having, in any given year, a performance that's better than the S&P. That's a topic for a different day, probably. But what stablecoins are really about is just payment instruments, right? The idea is that stablecoins are a faster and essentially free internet-based way of holding and remitting money to people. And in the developing world, where it really matters how quickly inflation erodes your savings, matters a lot more than it does in the U.S., there's a demand for these products. That's a way for us to make the dollar relevant again at a time when governments around the world are looking to decouple from the dollar. That's really a pretty important policy issue. It's not about crypto. It's about the role the United States plays in the financial system.
Right, but Brian, and maybe I misunderstand this, but in the world of crypto, isn't the conundrum and the reason why regulators and folks in Washington have been unwilling, effectively, I keep using the word blessing it, is even if they think they can regulate it here in the United States, that they really don't think they can regulate it elsewhere. And that if, for example, a crypto token, coin, whatever, were to falter elsewhere, we would sneeze here and get the same cold.
Yeah, I think that could be true, Andrew, when you talk about crypto tokens. Certainly, we saw enough crypto scams blow up. You just were talking about Sam Bankman-Fried a minute ago. We've seen enough of that. That's a very legitimate point. Stablecoins are really different, though. Stablecoins are really not different from a prepaid card, a traveler's check, or almost any payment innovation most viewers are familiar with over the last 50 years. The only difference being that those payment instruments travel on blockchains. So there's an underlying blockchain that is the network that allows those stablecoins to move freely and instantaneously. That's really the only connection here. And so the question is, if you're skeptical about crypto, shouldn't you be less skeptical about stablecoins, which have a value that is backed by something, defying many people's belief about crypto tokens? And shouldn't you really care about the relevance of the dollar, which is under competition from other crypto tokens? That's what's funny, is that the people who oppose Bitcoin are also opposed to stablecoins, even though in some ways the ideas behind them are in tension.
Right. Hey, Brian, before you go, can you speak to, we just talked about Sam Bankman-Fried. Can you speak to the investigation that's taking place at Binance, not Binance US, but Binance more broadly, and CZ, and what you think is really happening there?
Yeah, Andrew, I mean, I never talk about that. I can't really talk about it other than to say it's clear that governments want to have a position here. And that company, among others, is clearly one that's being looked at. Other than that, I really can't speak to that.